From the Ministry of the Presidency in Georgetown, this is This Week with the President.
Welcome to this week's edition of This Week with the President, a weekly news magazine which provides you with an in-depth look at the policies, programs and work of the President of Guyana in his quest to realize the good life for all Guyanese. I'm your host, Jasmine Payne. In the highlights this week, emancipation transformed plantations into a nation. President tells Denamstel, Plaisance and Ithaca residents. President says appointments are based on qualification and military officers should not be discriminated against. President tells Region 5 let bygones be bygones. Outgoing UN Representative Khadija Musa praises government's efforts to provide good life. Those stories and more on This Week with the President. August 1, 2016 marked 178 years since emancipation became a reality for thousands of newly freed Africans. Emancipation itself set in motion the arrival of indentured servants, so this means that it has also been 178 years since the arrival of the East Indians in the country as indentured immigrants. Soon after, the Portuguese, Europeans and Chinese arrived to begin paid labor on the plantations. President David Granger therefore believes that while the day is very significant for the Afro-Guyanese particularly, it should be recognized as the day when the people of the country came together. It is the country's national day, he said. After emancipation, the freed slaves began establishing villages. First among them, Victoria, located on the east coast of Demerara. Not so long after, other plantations were bought and converted into communities, where the slaves lived and raised their families. As time progressed, churches, schools and farms became pillars of the communities, as the freed slaves tried to build a life away from the one they had endured for centuries.
Tie nicely. 1, 2, 3. This is the day that the Lord has made.
Let me glad in it. Amen.
Come on. This is the day.
Start, children.
Yes. This is the day that the Lord has made.
Come on.
Let us sing.
Let us cooperate for Guyana. Let us cooperate for the land. Let us resolve to fight together. Say we do it right together. Can we do it? Yes, we can.
Delivering remarks at Denamstel, Plaisance and then later at the Ithaca village in the Mahaica-Berbice region, President Granger told the residents that it was emancipation which has led to the transformation from plantations to a nation, and it is now their responsibility to ensure that this transformation continues. For this transformation to take place, however, the President said that all Guyanese must work to not only put their differences aside, but to emulate our ancestors by pursuing education and by working together by establishing enterprises, especially in the area of agriculture and agro-processing, to build successful villages, communities, and a better country for the future generations. The family, education, religion, and entrepreneurship must once again become the driving forces of the communities, he said.
In these villages, we saw the construction of a new society, a society built on 4 pillars. First of all, the home. Because there were no homes on the plantations, people couldn't marry. And even if you had a partner, she could be sent to Wakinam. children to be sent to Bakersville. Family life was not permitted. After emancipation, people trek back so they can reconnect with their wives and their children, and they can build a home. That's why they had to get off those plantations, so they can build homes. That was the first pillar on which these villages were built. Family home. Keep the family together.
The home especially, the president said, plays an important role in every village, since it is where families teach values and the molding of mind and character. Places of worship, especially churches, during those days also played a critical role in the establishment of villages, since they set a foundation of strong morals, educated the young, and helped to shape their future. The other pillar, he said, is the farm or investments in agriculture, which are necessary for food security and the provision of income. Persons must be encouraged to become entrepreneurs so that farming initiatives in the villages can prosper, the president said.
An educated person is more likely to be innovative. So there are many fields that educated people can go into. For example, tourism, producing other types of products for the market, for example, fish products or vegetable products, instead of having potato chips with your fish at the fish shop, you can have sweet potato chips. So young entrepreneurs who are innovative and who can access information technology are likely to move ahead, and government can become a facilitator.
Education played a critical role in the development of villages, and President Granger said that it continues to be important to the development of all communities and the country. In this regard, President Granger said that his government is committed to working towards the provision of an enabling environment for job creation for young Guyanese and is taking an active role in ensuring sustainable, gainful employment. The president noted that the government's role is vital in the creation of employment for young people. He noted, too, that this role is particularly based on sound education systems, and this is the best possible start any government can give young people to ensure that they get to school and receive the type of education which can ultimately prepare them for the world of work.
Well, the government's role is vital because employment for young people particularly is based on a sound education system, and this is the best start the government could give young people to ensure that they get to school and that the type of education they receive in schools fits them for the world of work. In some cases, we've had dropouts. As far as I'm concerned, too many dropouts. But even so, we are putting more emphasis on technical and vocational education. And soon measures will be introduced in the National Assembly to explain our youth policy, and of course education will be the centerpiece of youth policy. So as far as government is concerned, at first instance, it must pay more attention to the traditional education system. Second, to get more young people into the technical and vocational training.
But while education is a key part of getting the youth population to work, the president understands that in order for the private sector to be an engine of economic growth, government must play a role in ensuring that an environment that allows businesses to thrive is available.
The government has to work with the private sector. There's no way that the government could give each and every person a job. What the government does is create a facilitating environment, and by working with civil society, by working with the employers, and by introducing policies which facilitate the type of job creation that we expect in villages, for example, in the new towns that are being created, we feel that more young people will enter the world of work. So government is pivotal, and the government, my government, is going to continue to assist young people to get jobs by working with the private sector, working with civil society, and working to ensure they get the type of education and technical preparation to go into the world of work.
On a softer note, the president iterated that the celebration of emancipation must be used to bridge gaps and to foster freedom in every sense. He noted that it is through emancipation that Guyana has been blessed with a diverse population from different racial groups in which all members are endowed with unique talents, skills, and cultural heritages, which must be unified for nation building.
And that is why I'm happy to be here
among Guyanese, people of every color, people from every religion, people from every ethnic group, from every social stratum. Today is important because I feel it's our real national day. The Portuguese came to this country on the 3rd of May, 1835, a year after the Independence Act was actually passed in the British Parliament. They came because of African emancipation. The Indians came here in 1838, 3 months before the 1st of August, 1838. The Africans gained their emancipation on the 1st of August, 1838. The Indians came here on the 5th of May, 1838, because of emancipation. The Chinese came here in 1853. If you go to Windsor Forest and the West Demerara, ask Harry Gill, he'll tell you there's a little monument there, because that's where the Chinese first landed. In 1853, our president, our first president, Arthur Chung, was born in that very community. So today, the 1st of August, was the day for which the Indians came, the Chinese came, the Portuguese came. So it is a day for the whole nation to celebrate, without distinction, because it's a day that brought us together and we became a beautiful nation.
Later in the day, at the Ithaca basketball court in Mahaika Berbice, the president reiterated the necessity for united villages to build the nation. He also reminded the gathering that last year he declared November 7 as the National Day of Villages to honor the contributions that villages have made to development.
Today, 1st of August, is symbolic. It is a day of deliverance for us. Deliverance from the bondage of 200 years of enslavement. When the Dutch first enslaved Africans in this land that we now know as Guyana, in the mid-1600s, it took 200 years of struggle before emancipation was won on the 1st of August, 1838. 200 years of domination and degradation. Today is a day of determination. It's a day when our foreparents determined to build better lives for themselves, and for their children, and for generations to come. Today also is a day of departure, a departure from degradation, a departure from discrimination, a departure from domination. So in truth, we must say that it is a day that the Lord has made. In truth, it must be a day that we must rejoice.
On that occasion, the president presented 125 hampers to the elderly and needy persons of the village, 20 bicycles to secondary school students under his 5Bs program, aimed at ensuring that every child is able to access an education, and a quantity of sport gear to keep them occupied during their leisure time. President David Granger has said that the appointment of retired or serving military officers to civilian posts is based on competency, and that there must be no discrimination against any Guyanese simply because they may have a military background. The president made these comments in response to questions posed to him by journalists on the July 28 edition of The Public Interest. The president stated that though he does not compare this administration to the previous one, the appointment of military officers is not unique to the current government. He noted too that just like civilians, military officers have the right to occupy certain positions so long as they possess the competence to do so.
These are human beings. These are people with skills. You know, they're not a separate breed of citizens. We can't deprive them of their rights if they have the talent, the experience, the qualifications. Why not? I don't discriminate against them. And obviously, Mr. Jagdeo, Mr. Ramatar didn't discriminate against them because I inherited a large number of former military officers who had been appointed by the PPP administration.
Questions were again raised on the August 4 edition of The Public Interest, questioning his perceived preference for individuals who have a military background.
But again, I don't compare myself with them. I'm looking for competent people. And if you can show me that there's any officer or former officer who is incompetent, well, I can, have him or her replaced by a more competent person. Right now in the National Assembly, as far as I can see, there's only one former military officer. In my cabinet, apart from me, there's only one former military officer. So there's no command-style control of the cabinet. The cabinet is run the same way as it was run before. I haven't created any special ministry in which military officers can dominate or influence unduly policy. The Defense Force is under the control of the civil authority.
After a months-long impasse among members of the Regional Democratic Council of Mahaica-Berbice, President Granger called on the members to let bygones be bygones. The disagreement had been sparked following the absence of the regional chairman, Mr. Vichan Ramphal, during several visits to the region by the president. Mr. Ramphal's repeated absence was deemed by council members as an act of disrespect to the president and resulted in protests demanding an apology from the regional chairman. However, the chairman was present at the Emancipation Day celebrations in Ithaca, West Bank, Berbice, where the president called on all council members to mend their differences for the good of the region.
That this country could only work if all three levels of government work together. The central government, represented here by the president and the ministers. The regional administration, represented by Mr. Ramphal, and the neighborhood and local government, represented by the mayors and the councillors. And I want all three levels of government to work together. And today, in Region 5, Mahaica-Berbice region, I do declare that all the members of the RDC must work together for the good of the Mahaica-Berbice region. Region 5, let us work together. This region produces so much rice, so much sugar, so much fish. There must be nothing to impede or obstruct the prosperity of this region. Let bygones be bygones.
The president said that while the members of the council will not always agree, the development of the region and the country as a whole remains the shared goal and utmost priority among them. President Granger also reminded residents that the proper administration of their communities and the country is in their hands. Mr. Ramphal, in an invited comment, said he is very happy that the president has intervened in the matter so that the work of the council can proceed.
I'm very happy that the president has intervened in this situation that we are experiencing in the region, because we are in the 8th month of the year, and for the past 7 months we could have not successfully hold our RDC meetings.
On a recent edition of The Public Interest, President Granger had called again for cooperation rather than confrontation to be the foundation of a new political culture in Guyana. The head of state had issued calls for a consensual outcome so that we can work together for the good of the region. For President David Granger, regional and international cooperation and amicable bilateral relations within the countries in the various hemispheres, as well as international organizations, are a priority. While Guyana engages the United Nations and its Secretary General Ban Ki-moon from time to time over the Venezuela-Guyana border controversy, Guyana has shared relations with the global organization for far longer. Through this partnership, a number of United Nations offices have been established in Guyana over the years, among them the United Nations Development Programme, which since 2012 has been headed by Ms. Khadija Musa. As every good thing, her tour of duty too must come to an end, and will so do this month. And according to President Granger, Ms. Musa, in her capacity and even beyond, has served Guyana with distinction over the period she has been here. As the UN envoy prepares to leave the country and the post, she has publicly offered her commendations to the government on its development efforts and called on all Guyanese to work together with the administration for good of country.
I see today really very genuine efforts to develop the country. I see very genuine planning, and I think that it is really important to support the process and provide the government the opportunity to succeed. Human beings always have their doubts in the back, but let the process be, and you may be surprised, and I think you may do extremely well.
Ms. Musa, who was at the time speaking at a farewell function held in her honor at the Pegasus Hotel last Friday evening, said that Guyana has great potential and a great future. The outgoing diplomat said that Guyana has rich mineral resources and a diverse heritage, which, with good governance, can see the country taking off on an upward trajectory, thereby providing every Guyanese with a good life.
As I leave this country, I see a very bright future for everyone who's here, Guyanese in particular. So when I read the newspaper and I read that a lot of young Guyanese graduating the university are heading north, I think they're misled. And there's much greater potential here. So I think that it'd be important to look at how these young Guyanese who are flowing north can be enticed to stay and be part of the future of this country. I think there's huge potential here. You're blessed in many ways, and I could see that. And every morning when I got up and I thought about the potential of this country, it made me work harder and harder.
Supporting President Granger's push for a unified nation with the establishment of a Ministry of Social Cohesion and a well-articulated policy direction, Ms. Musa called on the nation to live in solidarity. She noted that while there are differences, cultural and otherwise, these should not cause separation or discrimination, but rather must foster camaraderie.
I wait for the day that Guyanese are united and become one and start thinking as Guyanese. I know cultural differences are important, but those are cultural. And one can enjoy them, admire them, live together, and visit each other on your special days of the culture that you may belong to. But everyone should pitch in and enjoy it as a country and not let it divide you. If you think to be Guyanese first, and then you enjoy your cultures, whether be it Afro-Guyanese or be it Indo-Guyanese or be it, Portuguese Guyanese or whatever it may be, it's really important to be one.
Meanwhile, President Granger said that Guyana acknowledges the wide-ranging support and assistance provided during the Musa Quadrennium, as he noted that there was no area of governmental activity to which she did not lend her energy, expertise, and experience.
Her portfolio ranged from Amerindian land titling, climate change, democratic governance, the environment, interfaith harmony, information and communication technology, the media, occupational health and safety, poverty reduction, public health, social cohesion, social protection, solid waste management. I think I've got the whole cabinet there.
And now we'll take a look inside the President's diary. Last Wednesday, President David Granger met with a visiting capstone team of students from the United States National Defense University's General and Flag Officer course at the Ministry of the Presidency, where he was able to share with them some of the country's experiences, challenges, and strengths in the areas of security and economic development. In an invited comment, leader of the group, retired General Michael Cairns, United States Air Force, said that this is the first time the group has been to Guyana, and thus far, the experience has been great. He noted that the response and openness, especially on the part of the administration, is commendable. Then on Friday, President David Granger attended the funeral service of His Lordship Randolph George, former Bishop of Guyana. The service was held at the St. George's Cathedral, Georgetown. President Granger extended condolences to the relatives of the late bishop. The late bishop died on July 18, 2016. He served the episcopate from 1980 to 2008 and was bestowed with the Cassie Crown of Honor in 1994. President David Granger and First Lady Mrs. Sandra Granger last Saturday attended the Jubilation Concert, a fundraiser musical event hosted by the Tina Insinali Foundation at the Theatre Guild of Guyana's Playhouse. The performances, including a rendition of Dave Martin's Not a Blade of Grass and Cricket in the Jungle, left the audience, including the President and First Lady, impressed and entertained. The performers were drawn from the St. Anne's Home for Girls, St. John Bosco Home for Boys, Joshua House, the Rhymeville Children's Aid Center, and several other institutions. The proceeds from the event will go towards funding the music programs and classes, which are put on by the foundation from the children of those homes. President David Granger received a portrait of himself drawn with charcoal from 14-year-old Hannah Monroe, a student of the Phoenix Elementary School located on the Soosdijk Highway. The budding artist made the presentation during a visit to the Ministry of the Presidency with her parents Mrs. Carol Monroe and Mr. Bruce Monroe and several other students from the school. President David Granger received a copy of The Silent Hearer from author Miss Marcia Shuri at the Ministry of the Presidency. The book speaks to the story of how her happy childhood was turned upside down due to the onset of a sudden partial hearing loss, and how she rose above the many obstacles and frustrations in school, her career and relationships as she resolved to live a normal life. On July 25, President David Granger declared open the 14th Caribbean Cabaret in Guyana at the Durban Park. The Cabaret is an event held every 2 years for young scouts between the ages of 8 to 11 for 6 days and 5 nights during the July-August holiday from school. The president, who is patron of the organization, bid welcome to over 700 participants who ranged from more than 14 countries in the region, and said that the country was happy to welcome the various delegations, especially in the year of the Golden Jubilee. However, the celebration took an unfortunate turn on July 26, following an accident which resulted in the injuries to 8-year-old Nick Omari Joseph and 9-year-old Darnell Matthew. Both boys are Club Scouts from St. Lucia. The president, who was in cabinet when he learned of the accident, ordered that the Child Care and Protection Agency of the Ministry of Social Protection provide counseling services to the 700 remaining Cub Scouts, many of whom witnessed the accident. A team of 3 counselors was immediately dispatched to the Scout Association of Guyana on Wilfred Avenue. First Lady Mrs. Sandra Granger, who had minutes before delivered remarks at the parade, upon hearing of the accident, rushed to the Georgetown Public Hospital to check on the Cubs and to lend moral support to the parents and leaders who were anxious to know the extent of injuries the boys had received. The president has since made every effort to ensure that the 2 boys were given the best treatment and has also taken personal interest in their well-being, having met with the doctors who were charged with treating the boys, as well as meeting with the mothers of the children who traveled to Guyana to be with their sons. While Master Darnell Matthew was treated and sent away, Master Nick Omari Joseph remained in a stable but critical condition at the Georgetown Public Hospital. The president assured the parents that the medical staff as well as the government of Guyana would do everything possible to ensure that Master Matthew makes a full recovery. It has since been reported that young Master Matthew has been moved to the children's ward of the GPHC and that his condition continues to improve. That brings us to the end of this edition of This Week with the President. Thank you for joining me. For regular updates in the Ministry of the Presidency, go to our website www.motp.gov.gy, like our Facebook page, Ministry of the Presidency, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MOTP Guyana. Do have a safe and productive rest of the week. Goodbye.